When it comes to sexual health, few topics carry as much confusion, insecurity, and myth as the question of penis size. Men often worry they aren't enough, while women sometimes feel pressured to reassure partners or measure their own satisfaction against cultural expectations. In fact, surveys show that nearly half of men worldwide at some point wonder whether their size is adequate, and for many, that quiet insecurity affects confidence, intimacy, and even performance. Women, too, can feel caught in the middle, wanting to be supportive, but not always certain what truly matters for their own pleasure and comfort. This is something I hear often in clinic. A man in his 50s may ask, "Doctor, do women care about size?" Or a woman in her 40s may quietly confess, "I don't know how to tell him it's not about that." These are very real concerns, but the truth is, science has answers here. And those answers look very different from what movies, locker room talk, or social media might suggest. Today, we're going to explore the science of sexual anatomy and preference with honesty, compassion, and evidence. We'll talk about what studies show regarding average penis size, what women actually report wanting, how vaginal anatomy is designed, and why pleasure has far more to do with communication, hormones, pelvic health, and emotional connection than with inches on a ruler. Because here's the reality: your body isn't broken, it's just misunderstood. Sexual satisfaction is not one-dimensional, it's complex, beautiful, and deeply human. And when we understand the science, we strip away shame and fear, leaving room for connection, confidence, and choice. One of the first things we need to do is anchor this entire conversation in reality. What is the average penis size? Because without a baseline, it's easy to assume you're too small or not enough, when in truth, you may be perfectly within the normal range. A 2015 meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Urology International analyzed data from over 15,000 men worldwide. What did it find? The average erect penis length is about 5.16 inches, 13.12 centimeters, and the average erect girth or circumference is about 4.59 inches, 11.66 centimeters. Flaccid, the averages are 3.6 inches long and 3.7 inches around. These numbers are consistent across different populations, which tells us something important. The human body is remarkably consistent, and the idea that everyone else is bigger is a distortion. Yet many men believe otherwise. In clinic, I often hear patients say, "I'm below average," when in fact, they are right in the middle of the bell curve. Why the disconnect? Part of it comes from pornography and media portrayals where men are often selected for being far above average. Another part comes from male locker room comparisons or childhood teasing, which can leave deep psychological imprints. Think of it like looking at professional basketball players and assuming your height is inadequate because you don't measure up to an NBA star. It's not a fair sample, and it's not reality. But here's the more fascinating piece. When women are surveyed about their preferences, they often don't care nearly as much about exact size as men assume. Studies from UCLA and the University of California found that women typically prefer a partner who is within the average to slightly above average range. Not extreme. Why? Because vaginal anatomy is not built for depth alone. The most sensitive nerve endings, particularly the clitoral complex and the first 2-3 inches of the vaginal canal, are where stimulation and pleasure largely occur. Beyond that, excess length can even create discomfort, especially if arousal and lubrication aren't adequate. This doesn't mean girth and length don't matter at all. For some women, a sense of fullness or stretch can enhance sensation, and personal preference is always valid. But across large-scale surveys, consistency shows most women are satisfied with partners in the middle ranges. Very few rank extreme size as their top priority. In fact, emotional intimacy, communication, and confidence tend to rank higher in what women actually report as satisfying in long-term relationships. Here's an analogy. Imagine buying shoes. Yes, size matters to a degree. You want them to fit. But what's more important is comfort, style, and how you feel when you wear them. A shoe 2 sizes too big or too small isn't comfortable, even if it looks impressive on display. In the same way, a penis that's average but paired with confidence, good arousal, foreplay, and pelvic health is far more satisfying than an oversized one used without regard for a partner's comfort. So if you've ever thought, I'm not enough, take a breath. Statistically, you probably are. The science shows most men fall right where women actually want them to be. And that brings us to the next key insight, what women themselves say about preference, based on actual surveys and clinical research, not cultural myths. But before we dive there, let me ask you, does this resonate? Have you ever compared yourself to unrealistic standards? If so, you're not alone. And that's exactly why we're breaking this down judgment-free. If this kind of myth busting helps you, consider subscribing because your health deserves clarity, not confusion. Now that we've grounded ourselves in what average really means, let's turn to the question most men quietly wonder about: what do women actually want? This is where science is both refreshing and liberating, because while cultural myths paint women as universally desiring bigger, actual research tells a much more nuanced story. One of the most cited studies comes from UCLA and the University of New Mexico, where researchers ask women to handle 3D printed models of penises in different sizes. They were then asked to choose their preferred dimensions for 2 situations: a one-time sexual encounter and a long-term partner. The results: for casual sex, women preferred slightly larger than average, around 6.3 inches in length and 4.8 inches in girth. But for a long-term partner, preferences shifted downward, closer to the statistical average. Why? Comfort, compatibility, and intimacy mattered more than impressiveness. Another large survey published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine asked over 1,000 women about sexual satisfaction. Less than 20% ranked penis size as very important. What did they rank higher? Emotional connection, communication during intimacy, a partner's attentiveness, and their own state of arousal and lubrication. In other words, the way a partner makes them feel mattered far more than exact dimensions. This ties directly into the anatomy of the vagina itself. The average vaginal canal measures about 3 to 4 inches in its resting state. During arousal, the vaginal walls lengthen and expand, sometimes to 5, 6, or even 7 inches. But the most nerve-dense region is not deep inside. It's the entrance, the first 2, 3 inches, and the clitoral network that extends internally. Think of the vagina like a stretchable sleeve that adapts, but the pleasure sensors are concentrated near the opening. That's why even women partnered with men who are well above average sometimes report discomfort, while those with average partners report high satisfaction. Let's break this down with a simple analogy. Imagine you're listening to music. The speaker system matters, sure, but what creates the real emotional response is the quality of the song and how it resonates with you. In sexual intimacy, the speaker or anatomy plays a role, but the connection, foreplay, and attentiveness are the song. Without the song, the speaker can't deliver meaning. This also explains why many women experience pain if intercourse begins before adequate arousal. Without enough lubrication and blood flow, the vaginal tissues remain less elastic. In this scenario, size, even average size, can feel uncomfortable. But when arousal is prioritized, tissues lengthen and lubricate, making the experience not only comfortable but pleasurable. So here's the truth. Without judgment, women's preferences are not about extremes. They are about balance. A partner who is average in size but exceptional in communication, attunement, and pelvic health often creates far more satisfaction than someone larger but disconnected. From a practical standpoint, this means a few things for men. Stop comparing yourself to unrealistic standards. Statistically, you're likely exactly where you need to be. Focus on foreplay and arousal because vaginal anatomy adapts best when given time and stimulation. Ask your partner what feels good. A simple "do you like this?" can be more powerful than any number on a ruler. And for women, if you've ever felt discomfort or guilt about what you do or don't prefer, remember, your body is designed with sensitivity near the entrance, not in endless depth. You are not too shallow and you are not broken. You are built for pleasure, but that pleasure often comes from how your body is engaged, not from size alone. So when we strip away cultural myths, the takeaway is clear. Women want comfort, connection, and confidence far more than they want inches. And that leads us to the next insight: why arousal, hormones, and pelvic floor health matter even more than the size conversation itself. By now, we've seen that most women are not asking for extremes when it comes to size. But there's another layer we have to address, something that actually matters far more for satisfaction: the state of arousal, the role of hormones, and the health of the pelvic floor. This is something I hear often in clinic. A woman in her 40s might say, intercourse used to feel good, but now it's uncomfortable. Or a man in his 50s may tell me, I feel like I'm not satisfying her anymore. And very often the issue isn't size at all, it's physiology. Let's start with arousal. When a woman becomes aroused, blood flow increases to the genital area, the clitoris and vaginal walls engorge, and lubrication begins. This process lengthens and expands the vaginal canal, sometimes by several centimeters. If penetration happens before this expansion, even an average penis can feel uncomfortable, almost like trying to force a shoe onto a foot that isn't ready. This is why foreplay isn't just a nice extra. It is, in fact, a biological necessity for comfort and pleasure. Next, hormones. Estrogen in particular plays a vital role in vaginal health. Think of estrogen as the body's natural moisturizer. It keeps the vaginal walls thick, elastic, and well lubricated. As estrogen levels decline after childbirth with certain birth control methods, or especially during perimenopause and menopause, the tissues can become thinner, drier, and more fragile. This is what we call genitourinary syndrome of menopause, GSM. For many women, GSM can make intercourse painful regardless of a partner's size. And yet, so often, both partners assume the issue is something else. The good news is that there are treatments. Vaginal estrogen creams, DHEA inserts, and non-hormonal moisturizers can restore elasticity and comfort. Even simple lifestyle choices like staying hydrated, reducing smoking, and practicing regular sexual activity can help maintain blood flow and tissue health. Then we have the pelvic floor. Think of the pelvic floor as a hammock of muscles holding the bladder, uterus, and rectum. When these muscles are strong and well coordinated, they support pleasurable sensation and improve blood flow. But when they're weak, overactive, or in spasm, they can contribute to pain, urinary leakage, or difficulty with arousal. Pelvic floor physical therapy, yes, that's a real specialty, can make an enormous difference for both men and women. For men, pelvic floor training has been shown to improve erectile function, stamina, and even ejaculatory control. For women, strengthening and relaxing the pelvic floor can increase sensation, reduce pain, and enhance orgasmic potential. This is far more impactful than obsessing over inches. Here's the key takeaway: sexual satisfaction is a whole body process. Arousal, lubrication, hormones, and muscle health create the environment where intimacy thrives. Without them, even the so-called perfect size can feel disappointing. With them, average becomes more than enough. So if you've been worried about not being big enough, shift the focus. Ask yourself, am I prioritizing my partner's arousal? Are we addressing hormonal changes openly? Could pelvic floor health be part of the conversation? These are the levers that actually move the needle. And if this resonates with you, drop a comment, because I promise you're not alone in wondering these things, and subscribe if you want more clarity without the myths and medical jargon. Next, we'll dive into something equally powerful: the psychology of sexual satisfaction, because confidence, communication, and emotional connection may be the greatest size enhancers of all. At this point, It's clear that anatomy and biology are only part of the story, but let's be honest, sex is never just physical. It is deeply psychological, and what's happening in the mind for both partners often determines whether intimacy feels fulfilling or disappointing. This is where confidence and communication come in. I'll share something I hear frequently in clinic. A man may say, I feel like my partner isn't satisfied because I'm not big enough. At the same time, his partner sitting in the same room will say, I wish you would stop worrying and just focus on being present with me. The disconnect is striking. The man is stuck in his head, measuring himself against an imagined standard, while the woman is craving connection and reassurance. This is backed up by research. A study in the Journal of Sexual Medicine found that men who reported higher anxiety about penis size also reported lower sexual satisfaction, regardless of their actual size. Interestingly, their partners did not share the same level of concern. What mattered most to partners was attentiveness, intimacy, and emotional closeness. In other words, self-doubt, not size, was often the real obstacle. Think of it this way. Imagine you're learning to dance with a partner. If you're too busy looking at your feet and worrying about how you look, you're not actually dancing. But if you focus on your partner, the rhythm, and the shared experience, the dance becomes effortless. Intimacy works the same way. Women also experience their own psychological pressures. Some worry about vaginal tightness or dryness, fearing they're not normal. Others carry shame from cultural messages that sex should be silent, submissive, or purely for their partner's pleasure. These beliefs can create tension and self-consciousness, which directly interfere with arousal. The brain is the largest sexual organ. After all, if the mind is distracted or anxious, the body can't fully engage. Here's the empowering truth. Communication dissolves much of this tension. When couples openly discuss what feels good, what hurts, or what they'd like more of, satisfaction increases dramatically. This has been shown in countless relationship studies. Couples who talk about sex report better intimacy, regardless of size, frequency, or even age. Confidence also plays a critical role. Confidence isn't arrogance. It's presence. It's the ability to be fully engaged with your partner, to listen to their body, to trust your own. Confidence tells your partner, I'm here, I care, and I'm not distracted by my own doubts. That presence is often far more attractive and satisfying than any number of inches could be. So how can you build this confidence? Start small. Focus less on performance, more on connection. Before intimacy, set aside a few moments just to touch, breathe, or talk. During intimacy, pay attention to your partner's reactions, not in an anxious way, but in a curious, caring way. If something feels good, keep going. If it doesn't, adjust. Remember, you are not performing on a stage, you are sharing an experience. And if you find self-doubt creeping in, am I enough? Remind yourself of the science. Women overwhelmingly value presence, communication, and trust more than size. Your worth is not measured in centimeters, it's measured in care, confidence, and connection. So the next time you step into intimacy, ask yourself, am I in my head or am I with my partner? Because that choice alone can transform an average moment into something extraordinary. Now let's move into the final piece of this conversation, what you can actually do, practical steps and daily tools to enhance confidence, pleasure, and connection no matter your size. By now, we've untangled a lot of myths. We know that most men fall well within the desired range. We know that vaginal anatomy is designed to adapt and that pleasure is concentrated in the first few inches, not in endless depth. We know arousal, hormones, pelvic floor health, and psychology matter more than any measurement. But let's make this practical. What can you actually do today to improve satisfaction, confidence, and connection, no matter your size? 1. Prioritize foreplay and reframe it as essential, not optional. Think of arousal like preheating an oven. You can put food in early, but it won't cook properly. In the same way, rushing into penetration without adequate foreplay sets both partners up for discomfort and frustration. Spend time on kissing, touching, oral stimulation, and playful exploration. The body needs time to respond. For many women, 15-20 minutes of focused foreplay is what transforms intercourse from uncomfortable to deeply pleasurable. 2. Strengthen your pelvic floor. Kegel exercises aren't just for women. Men who train their pelvic floor can improve erections, stamina, and ejaculatory control. Women benefit too. Pelvic floor therapy enhances sensation, reduces leakage, and increases orgasm potential. Think of the pelvic floor like the foundation of a house. If it's weak or unstable, the entire structure above it suffers. Start with simple Kegels, tightening as if you're stopping urine mid-flow, and hold for 5 seconds, 10 reps, 3 times a day. Better yet, see a pelvic health physical therapist for personalized guidance. 3. Address hormonal health openly. If you're a woman in your 40, 50, or beyond, vaginal dryness or discomfort isn't a reflection of your desire or brokenness. It's often a hormonal shift. Ask your gynecologist about local estrogen therapy, lubricants, or non-hormonal moisturizers. For men, if energy, erections, or libido feel lower, it may be worth checking testosterone and other hormones with your doctor. Sometimes the solution is as medical as it is relational. 4. Explore different positions and rhythms. Size perception often changes with angle and depth. For women who find deeper thrusting uncomfortable, positions that allow control, like being on top, can help. Side-lying positions can also reduce discomfort and emphasize intimacy. Remember, there's no right position. Experiment until you find what works for both of you. 5. Talk before, during, and after. A single sentence can transform an experience. Saying, "Does this feel good?" or "I like when you," gives your partner permission to share openly. After intimacy, check in. What did you enjoy most? Over time, these small conversations create safety and confidence that no ruler could ever provide. 6. Redefine success. Satisfaction isn't measured by orgasm count or performance. It's about connection, relaxation, and mutual enjoyment. Some of the most intimate moments happen without penetration at all. Expanding your definition of sex to include touch, massage, and emotional closeness takes the pressure off performance and often leads to more pleasure. Think of it this way. Your sexual health is like a garden. Size is just one factor, like the kind of soil. But if the garden lacks sunlight, emotional connection, water, hormones, and lubrication, and care, communication, and foreplay, nothing thrives. When you nourish all parts, even average soil yields beautiful growth. So here's your takeaway. Start with one small step. Maybe today that means committing to more foreplay. Maybe it means booking a pelvic floor consult. Maybe it's simply saying out loud, "I've worried about this, but I want to focus on connection instead." These small shifts build confidence and satisfaction far more than obsessing over size. And that brings us to our final chapter, pulling all of this together, the truth about size, what really matters, and the one mindset shift that can change everything. We've taken quite a journey today. We started with one of the most common yet least openly discussed insecurities in sexual health size. Along the way, we've uncovered what the science, anatomy, psychology, and lived experience of couples actually reveal. So let's recap. First, most men fall right within the global average, around 5 inches erect, and that is exactly where most women's preferences lie. The extremes we see in media are just that, extremes, not reality. Second, when women are surveyed honestly, they consistently say they care more about comfort, intimacy, and emotional connection than about raw dimensions. For short-term encounters, some may lean towards slightly above average, but for long-term satisfaction, average is not only enough, it is often preferred. Third, Vaginal anatomy itself tells us why. The canal adapts, expands, and stretches, but the most nerve-rich areas are near the entrance and in the clitoral network. That means depth is not the defining factor of pleasure. Arousal, attention, and comfort are. Fourth, hormones in pelvic health play a crucial role. Estrogen loss during menopause, pelvic floor dysfunction, or lack of adequate foreplay can make intimacy uncomfortable no matter the partner's size. But with proper attention, whether that's pelvic floor therapy, hormone support, or just more time for arousal, intimacy becomes far more satisfying. Fifth, psychology is often the true gatekeeper of pleasure. Worrying about size can sabotage intimacy more than size itself. Confidence, presence, and communication are what partners actually crave. When you stop focusing on measurements and start focusing on connection, satisfaction rises dramatically. And finally, we talked about practical steps, more foreplay, pelvic floor training, hormone awareness, experimenting with positions, and most importantly, open conversation. These are the real tools for lasting satisfaction. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with this truth. Your worth is not measured in inches. Your ability to satisfy a partner is not written in your anatomy, but in your presence, your care, and your willingness to engage with their needs. Your body isn't broken. It's just been misunderstood in a culture obsessed with the wrong metrics. If there's one small but powerful change you can make starting today, let it be this: shift your focus from performance to connection. Before intimacy, take a breath and remind yourself, this is about us, not about me proving anything. That mindset alone can transform the way both you and your partner experience sex. Because ultimately, what women really want, what partners really want, isn't a number, it's trust. It's feeling safe, desired, listened to, and cared for. When that's present, satisfaction follows. So stay curious, stay informed, and remember your body is worthy of care exactly as it is. If this conversation gave you clarity, give it a like and subscribe for more grounded, judgment-free education in sexual health, hormone balance, and vitality. You deserve truth, not shame. You deserve confidence, not confusion. And most of all, you deserve intimacy that feels good for both you and your partner, not because of size, but because of connection.